Okay. And so as we begin to go ahead and cover the data reporting tool, the updates to the data reporting tool, I also just wanted to share who will be on the call from our team. We're excited to have a number of team members from our team, from the Elevate Youth California team. I'm Palvinder Kaur, Program Officer at the Center at Sierra Health Foundation. I also have with us on our team Latajane Hall, Program Assistant, and Andrew Ha, Program Associate, as well as Noemi Avalos, Program Officer, Evaluation Officer, and also Brandon Matisse. And we're really lucky to also have Jim Keddy, who is the founder of Youth Forward, and as well as a member of the Prop 64 advisory group that oversees the implementation of this funding for Prop 64, specifically for youth development. So we're really excited to have all of the folks on the call today, and we're hoping that this information will allow you all be better geared in terms of sharing your work that's happening quarterly, as well as just better informing us as your work is kind of shifting and the updates that are occurring. You all received an email this morning. Apologies for the short notice on timing, just in regards to approvals that we needed to make sure in finalization of this tool. So in your email inboxes, you should have received two attachments. One is a highlighted version, which will be the one that I'm covering. It shows the specific changes to the data reporting tool from your previous version that you had. I'm going to walk through first the minor changes on each of the tabs, and then we'll really be utilizing this call to focus on the updated participant and systems change tab. We wanted to take into consideration the feedback that we've heard from partners over the last two progress reports and in the last few weeks as we've met with each of you, and you'll see a lot of the changes are being incorporated. So on this first tab, and also if you need me to zoom in or zoom out at any point, feel free to let me know. You can also follow along if it's a little bit more accessible to pull up the highlighted version on your end as well. But feel free to let us know in the chat, or if we need to zoom in at any point. So the change on this first background and definitions is we added this section here to just provide a little bit more context, highlighting just each of the tabs, and then also sharing a little bit more about how to submit the report. The rest of this tab remains the same in regards to the deadlines and the reporting period. None of that has changed. We will be providing an extension for this progress report, which we'll share over email on that. So the rest of this tab remains the same in regards to project outcomes and the definitions, allowing you to have a better understanding at any point when you need to just revisit on the definitions and the specific aspects. On the program profile tab, you'll notice that one of the changes that we made here is to include your grant number on this tab. This allows us to easily access, and easily have access to your grant number, but also as a reminder for each of you as well, and ensuring that you have the correct grant number as well for this reporting tool. And you'll see that as you scroll down, we did add a new section for the number of all partners that you had, as well as the previously engaged partners or the current partners that you had that weren't new. We heard from a number of our partners, each of you that shared that you may not have had new partners that this progress report, but you still were engaging with other partners. And so we wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to list all of these partners, whether they're school districts or the media or other community organizations. This provides kind of a holistic approach to this, so we can see kind of not just the new partners, but also the previously engaged partners. And I know for many of you, it's hard, as well as when I filled out, data tools as well, it becomes a little bit challenging when you're like, I don't have anything new to report. And as you continue your work, especially into year two, there may be fewer new partners, and you may feel like you're still engaging with others. And so this allows for us to see, all of the current partners you're engaging with, as well as the previous partners you have engaged with as well. And then the remaining section on the stakeholders, partners, and organizations remains the same. The rest of this section has had no changes to it. Then I'll go ahead and continue on to the demographics tab. I know in our individual sessions with each of our partners so far, we've had an opportunity to dive deeper and provide feedback. So we've acknowledged some of the changes here, and we wanted to illustrate that we have added a few additional rows on the demographic tabs as well. And so you'll see for gender identity, we've added non-binary as well as gender non-conforming. This allows for us to have, a broader range of gender identity that truly reflects the communities that we serve. We've also added in LGBTQ2S plus youth and an unknown column as well. Hearing back from our partners and in the LGBTQ2S plus, as well as the housing insecure and the foster care and the systems impacted youth, as we shift into this virtual environment, it has become challenging for a number of our partners to be able to confirm this information or know whether the youth that they're serving fit into these buckets, especially, hearing from partners and having an understanding of LGBTQ2 plus youth, and even their identity formation, especially at that younger age of 12 to 16 or 12 to 18, whether they want to disclose. We don't want there to be assumptions made about the youth, but rather information that they're sharing. And so these unknown columns allow you to share whether you are sure, or whether it allows us to know whether you're collecting this information, and then we can better figure out ways to provide technical assistance, to see how to support the data collection for these methods. And so I know it's definitely very challenging, as we're building trust and relationships with youth virtually, especially new youth you may not have engaged with. And so we want to be mindful about collecting this information in this sort of capacity, and also understanding. So we're hoping that these additional rows will allow us to gain more insights on, which partners are collecting this information and which ones need more assistance in this area. On the youth empowerment tab, we're excited to share that, while a few of our partners were already utilizing some of the space on, or either adding in an additional column or using, the date to kind of add in a little bit more information. We're excited to share that we've added a new column for you to include your event name and a brief description of the event. We're grateful for our partners to utilize the space that they need. And luckily there's no limitations on Excel, cells particularly. But we're excited to kind of hear more about the events that you've had, and then also brief descriptions for you to share that as well. And the remainder of this tab also remains unchanged. We saw a few partners were already doing this by including a brief description, and we just wanted to provide that space there, so you didn't have to kind of find that on your own. In addition to, or on the cultural lens tab, I believe this tab is completely unchanged. So there aren't any changes here. So you'll be completing it in the same way that you have been. And as we've shared with our partners in our one-on-one sessions, you all have been doing a tremendous job about including the policies and procedures that have been changing on the cultural lens aspect. And so I'll pause there, and if there's any questions, feel free to share them in the chat. We'd love to answer any of the questions on these preliminary minor changes that have occurred. And then we'll jump into the participant and systems change tab, which I am sure you all are eagerly awaiting. Okay, seeing none, and if there are any, please feel free to jump in and share, add in at any points questions that you may have. We do realize that you may not have had too much time to look over this tab, but we'll be going over the new participant and systems change tab. So this is completely revamped. It looks nothing like the previous version, which, hearing again from each of you, this is more geared towards what you're looking for, and having an opportunity to provide a narrative and clearly share the progress that all of you are making. And so I will just go ahead and state that when we were thinking about this tab and as we decided to change it, we wanted to be very mindful of, providing an opportunity for you all to share the changes that are occurring in both participants and systems change work. We understand the tab previously listed accomplishments, and so we wanted an opportunity for you all to share about how your work is going, the successes you had, and also the challenges and solutions that you're looking at. And so we're excited to have an opportunity to dive deeper on this. Our team, Noemi and Brianna, will be providing some examples as well. And after this call, we'll be sharing the handout with those examples. So I'll pause here and allow for Jim to have an opportunity, if you would like, Jim, to share any thoughts on this tab and also systems change work overall.
Yeah, thanks, Palvinder. And first, let me just say that how much I appreciate that the Center at Sierra Health is working in this way, a kind of iterative way of evolving this tool and getting feedback from grantees. I think that's super important. And just to kind of, from a big picture point of view, I think those of you joining this discussion are aware that, traditionally evaluation looks at direct service and tries to measure change at the individual level. And most of the evaluation models we use, tracking data, tends to revolve around change at the individual level. Because this initiative, Elevate Youth California, is focused on policy and systems change and environmental change, we do have to take a different evaluation approach and try to look at, over time, how are we affecting policy, systems, and environment? And also, how are we building capacity to advocate for those kinds of changes? So it requires a different approach. And I believe this new tool, because it's more grounded in narrative and recognizes that to win policy and systems change often takes years, and that we are working in an environment that changes all the time. So sometimes our goals that we're pursuing have to evolve as well. So I'm hoping this tool will be more appropriate to the kind of work you're doing. And it's looking both at change at the participant level, individuals, capacity building, and then also over time, how are we affecting the environment? So thanks, Palvinder, for the chance just to say a few words.
Yeah, of course, Jim, and please jump in at any point as we kind of dive deeper on this. As Jim mentioned, policy and systems change work does occur over time, and we want to be mindful of that. So, this is where our team has really taken some deliberation and hearing from each of you to be able to change this and to revise this tab. So we're hoping that this allows a better opportunity for each of our partners to provide that narrative, to provide the context, and also for us really to hear about the successes and the challenges and the solutions that you have. One of the things that this progress report allows our EYC team to do is really think about the technical assistance and how to support our partners. So as we dive in each quarter into the progress reports, we're looking at the technical assistance you've shared and also the ways in which you may need more support. And so it allows us to really look at that. So I wanted to make sure that we share that, we are hoping that each of you are open and honest and transparent about both the successes and as well as the challenges you're facing. We know that policy and systems change work is difficult and challenging. and is even more challenging probably in the current environment, as we have the COVID-19 pandemic, and also the needs of our communities are rapidly shifting, and being made more apparent. And so as you all are working to meet those needs of the community, we understand that the policy and systems change that you've initially, reported or shared, may change, and we're open to that. We want to make sure that, your policy and systems work is youth-led and youth-informed. And so some of you have taken some time in the initial phases of your program to hear from youth and to hear from them on their thoughts and their feedback and what sort of policy or systems change work they would like to do. Others have implemented that or are looking to implement that throughout the program, throughout the 2.5 years of this grant agreement and this partnership with EYC for the first round of funding. And so we want to be transparent about that, and let you know that we're understanding along that. And so, as your policy shifts, and if it does shift over the course of this partnership, we are hoping that you'll definitely update this first policy goal, that the first section of this tab, and this is your policy goal. So if you have already outlined and defined your policy goal, and your youth are on board, that's exciting. And whether that changes or not, we're open to hearing how that happens. And so this first section is for you to outline your policy goal. Again, it may have changed from the time of your work plan and your grant agreement, but we're asking for you to list this here each quarter. As you're submitting your progress report, it allows us to know how this is changing and any shifts that are occurring. Additionally, if you do have any questions about your policy goal, if you're like, we're not sure if this fits, or we might need to change it, feel free to reach out to us. Our team is more than happy to help with finalizing or kind of refining even the policy goal, and just ensuring that it fits the work that you're thinking about. And we're here as a partner and as a true partner in this work. And so if we may not have the answer to your question, we're more than happy to find the resources as well for that too. So this first section, entering your policy goal, and so for many of you it may not change over the course of the partnership. For others, it may. So just making sure that we're updating that as it goes. And then this next section allows for an opportunity to share your successes. So, as we've had our calls with our partners, a number of you have been sharing successes in your program overall. And it's important to highlight the successes, whether they seem small, or whether they're huge accomplishments. Nothing is too small of a success to celebrate on our end. We want to make sure that you all are recognizing the amazing work that you all are doing, and having an opportunity to take a moment and appreciate the work that you have accomplished. And so whether it's with increasing knowledge around youth, or whether it's having more youth participate in some of the systems change work, all of that is applicable. And so this is an opportunity to share for you about the successes with your program operation, staff or training, program delivery, the successes with your program, the partnerships you're having, and even the advocacy efforts. And then this next section talks about the challenges and planned solutions. We'd be remiss if we didn't say there were any challenges in this work. We know, especially with policy and systems change and environmental change work, there's many challenges we encounter. And so we wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to share those. And this really allows us to have an opportunity to understand, to see if there's ways that we can additionally support through technical assistance, through networking, wherever we can try to step in to provide additional support and assistance, we are more than happy to do so. So in addition to you thinking about, and your organizations thinking about planned solutions for these challenges, it's an opportunity for you to share that, it would be helpful to have an upcoming networking session that focuses on a specific area, or to be connected to a partner that's doing similar work, or even a specific topic for a technical assistance session. So, we encourage you all to share both the successes and the challenges and plan solutions that you have, and additionally ask us if there's any ways that we can also assist there too. This next section and the last two sections of this report are probably the more nuanced ones, I guess, in some ways. And so, the participant outcomes, in our last template really illustrated these in a different way. And so we wanted to provide an opportunity to have a narrative. And so I'm happy to share that Noemi and Brianna, as soon as I go over this, will also be sharing, some examples to these. So hopefully that'll allow you to seek some concrete examples and ways to evaluate your participant outcomes. So this section is specifically focused on participant outcomes and how you'll be achieving your goal or your policy goal through participant outcomes. So, it's important to be able to build the capacity of young leaders and adults, in different aspects of this work. So community outreach, coalition building, issue analysis, and engaging policymakers, right? And so this section allows you to describe the participant outcomes. So, whether their knowledge or their skills are changing, and different ways to do that. And so while you might be thinking about, okay, well, how am I going to evaluate this? And do I have to have a pre or post survey? And is that the only way to evaluate participant outcomes? I'm happy to share there are diverse ways in which you can look at participant outcomes, and Noemi and Brianna will be more than happy to share some examples shortly. And so, as you have an opportunity in this section, you'll be listing, the participant outcomes, and then the associated program activities. So, when Noemi and Brianna have an opportunity to share these examples, you'll have a concrete idea of what that looks like. So in this first section, sharing, what was done and where it's happening, or kind of, and when it's taking place, but also who's involved and the number of youth and how you're measuring that specifically. So, a number of partners have shared, the challenges in the virtual setting of pre-post surveys and youth engagement, where many youth don't want to turn on their cameras, and then asking them to fill out a survey is challenging. There's ways to be very creative in measuring these outcomes. So I'm happy, we'll be happy to share some additional examples of this shortly. Then this last section on this tab covers the policy systems and environmental change. And so similar structure to the previous portion on participant outcomes, but this is specifically looking at how to achieve your progress towards your policy goal through achieve policy systems and environmental change. And so this allows you an opportunity to kind of take it not from the participant's perspective, but from the policy systems and environmental outcomes perspective. And this might be a little bit confusing right now on what sort of differences are, what will be the different aspects that are included in each of these sections. But I assure you, as Noemi and Brianna share, you'll have a greater clarity on that as well. And so similarly, it's structured the same way to describe 2 to 3 sentences in each of that. If you need a little bit more space, we encourage you to take that. But we also don't want it to be that you feel like you're having to write paragraphs on end. This is an opportunity to share briefly about the work that you're doing. And of course, if you want to elaborate on any of that or describe the challenges, we encourage you to share those as well, or even those successes, right? But in no way do we want this to make it seem like you have to write paragraphs for each of the outcomes. And so I'll turn it away to Noemi and Brianna to go ahead and go over the examples. So I'll switch my screen sharing to that document.
Thank you, Covender. Can you all see my screen? Perfect. I'll be sharing the first example, and then Brianna will go share the second example. For these outcomes, we want you to First, think about the program activity that led to the participant outcome. And in thinking in describing the program activity, we would like you to describe what was done. For example, if a training was done, where and when it took place, who was involved, including if another partner was involved in the activity, and also to describe how the participant outcomes were measured. For example, if they were measured verbally, through a Zoom or Instagram meeting poll, through a survey, through a focus group, through photo voice, through interviews, how you were measuring these outcomes. In this first example, it says, at our virtual Rise Up event on February 2nd, program mentors discuss healthy coping mechanisms as an alternative to substance use. So that states what was done. This 1 hour and a half one-time event was held on Instagram Live and garnered a peak of 100 viewers. So the first two sentences were about the event and who participated, 100 viewers. Then the last sentence described how the outcome was measured. The responses were taken from an Instagram poll given before and after the live session. Then on the participant outcome, we would like you to specify the change. For example, percentage change from pre to post, and for how many participants. So just to be more specific about the change. In this particular example, the outcome was 50% of the youth, or 35 out of the 70, reported increased knowledge of healthy alternative coping mechanisms following the Instagram event. Additionally, 50% of the youth who took the survey could name at least 2 healthy coping mechanisms by the conclusion of the event. Brianna, do you want to go to the second example?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And for the second example, we also tried to provide another example for something that was more long-term. So the activity was 10 weekly meetings with 25 participants as part of the training. And then we went into what kind of was happening at that training. So the 3 focus areas, and once again, how the outcome was measured. So pre and post training surveys were given through Google Forms. And then the outcome in that left column, we said 15 out of the 20 youth who participated in the weekly meetings and had completed our pre and post surveys showed the increased self-efficacy and in those focus areas. And we also mentioned the difference from baseline to that 10th meeting to how that self-efficacy changed and included the percentage points for those.
Thank you. For the third example is similar that it also used a pre and post conference surveys to track changes in knowledge as well as attitude towards in self-efficacy, as well as personal leadership growth. And we included that prior to the conference for the outcome, prior to the conference activity, responses on all survey constructs average between 4.07 and 4.69 on a Likert scale. And then we provided the post-conference scores to show the change from pre to post. Another example that we wanted to provide is if you are developing, for example, a resource or a video and you're posting it online, then you could provide the number of downloads or the number of views for that resource. And when describing the resource, it's important to mention for example, the title of the resource. And if you could provide the link to the resource, that will be really helpful for us. So you could link it in the title so that it's accessible for us to look at and also to share with our funders. In the last example, I'll go over that example. 10 youth in Sacramento participated in a photo voice project, a qualitative research method that fosters analysis of the types of environments that influence substance use. So right here is describing this activity, photo voice, or this method to uncover social norms that exist in their communities. The youth toured their cities, snapping photos. They created posters to share their images and reflections. And for this particular activity, this led to this participant outcome. Overall, the youth increased their awareness of the substance use issue and community resolutions to the issues. And this one could also, for example, if the participants were to present these results, this photo voice project to key stakeholders that can influence policy change, that could also lead to, or to the community in general, that could also lead to increase awareness of the issue among community members. And so that would be a change that you could also provide under the policy systems and environmental change. So moving on to policy systems and environmental change, again, we have a table where we ask you to list the associated program activities. This is a contribution, how you contributed to the policy systems and environmental change. And we say contribution because we know that to change a policy, as you mentioned, it takes years and it takes different efforts from different organizations. And so, but here, we want you to specify under the associated program activities, what was your activity that contributed to the achieved outcome. Brianna, do you want to go over the first one?
Sure. So the activity or contribution that we used for this example was 10 youth enrolled in our program, actively participated in 3 advisory board meetings about the policy and advocated for it to be passed. And we kept this one pretty general because we know that your organizations are doing a variety of things. So if you wanted to provide more information on that policy or that activity, that could be in that box. And then for the outcome, we put in January, a policy was passed to restrict the amount of liquor stores into low-income neighborhoods of color. And this change is a community policy passed on this date and will become effective in this date. So noting that time, of course, difference that it would take for it to become effective. And yeah, whatever information you feel is valuable and relevant can be put in that box.
Thank you. And for the sake, so this first outcome, it takes more time, right? Because this policy change, even though it's at the community level, it still might take more time than the second outcome that I'm going to go over. On February 20th, 3 program participants presented at the City Council to advocate for policy change. The youth shared their findings from the research, including the process to collect and analyze data, as well as the results. And the outcome is that findings shared through this presentation increase community awareness of the impact of the policy of African American and Latinx youth. So usually, if you increase the awareness first of the community, key stakeholders, then that can lead to an outcome such as the first one, change in policy. These are just a few examples that we prepare for this training, but we would like to be updating this handout with examples from your progress reports as you turn those in, so that the other funded partners can also learn from you. You can learn from them, and so just to make it as useful as possible. If you have in other ideas also of how to track this type of outcomes in this, especially in this COVID-19 environment, also feel free to email those to Falbender, and so that we can also include those examples. Thank you. I'll stop my screen.
Thanks so much, Naomi and Brianna, for covering that. And so I know there's been a few questions already in the chat, and so we'll start with those. But if anyone has any questions, feel free to share them in the chat, so that way we can cover them. And I'll also provide an opportunity for anyone. Jim, if you have anything else you want to share or any insights.
No, I'm good. Thank you for asking me.
Awesome. I am trying to pull up there's a question in the chat. Okay, my chat. So one of the partners asked, a number of measurable outcomes won't be available every quarter. Many of them are cumulative and will be available after June each year. Do we need outcomes every quarter? That's a great question. So and I'll kind of cover this in some of the examples that some of the partners have shared, and then I'll provide some examples of outcomes that you possibly can include. So I know that a few of the partners have specific cohorts that they're leading, and they might be for 3 or 6 months or even a year. And so if you have like a pre and post survey that's starting in the beginning and the end, it's challenging to kind of say, well, 3 months in for our 6-month cohort, where folks are at, especially if you're doing a pre and post survey. So you may not have an outcome for that, but we encourage you to list, at least for us, that you did take a pre-survey. So if you have particular activities and outcomes that you don't have to report that quarter, we encourage you to list them as coming, or kind of have you done your pre-survey and maybe some of the results from that. This might be also applicable more for the policy systems and environmental outcomes. So if you're focusing specifically on, and utilizing the example that Noemi and Brianna covered with the presentation to the elected officials, if you're, having sessions with youth on being able to talk about what they're going to be sharing with the elected officials or the policymakers, that is definitely something that you can report. You can share insights as you go, even before the entire outcome is completed. So we encourage you to think about smaller outcomes or continuous outcomes that occur over the duration of that activity. But of course, if you feel like you don't have anything to report, we encourage you to just share some insights and adding in, if you think that you might have something, and we can provide feedback on that as well. And I know that there was a hand raised. I'm trying to navigate Zoom now, so to see how this works. And if not, Andrew or Latajane, feel free to help me out here. I believe there was a hand raised, but I don't see it anymore. If you have a question, please raise your hand and we can allow for it to unmute, I think. Okay. There's another question in the chat. If we have a group of youth in our cohort, are we documenting the changes in their attitude, beliefs, etc., or are we documenting these changes in the youth our cohort is trying to outreach to with their project goal, or is it both? That's a great question, Alejandra. Yes, we encourage you, if you are conducting evaluation on both of those ends, that is great. If you're working with a group of youth who are in your program, we encourage you definitely to do some evaluation on their end. So, pre-post surveys, polls throughout the program time, all of that. And if you have a media campaign, you have, whether it's on social media or whether you are conducting, educational materials with your youth that are doing outreach to the community. If you have the capacity to do so, we encourage you to also conduct some evaluation on how your program or how your outreach is also impacting, or the outcomes of that the outcomes of that outreach. Yes, so the more evaluation, the better from our end. If you have any other questions, feel free to drop in the chat. We'll stay on for a bit longer if there are any questions. Of course, you're more than welcome to also send us an email. You can feel free to send it to myself or the Elevate Youth California email. We've connected with you all recently, and so just sharing that. And of course, we know that there are changes to this progress report that may cause some hiccups and may cause you to kind of think about, am I doing this in the correct way? What I will say is the more information you share, the better it is on our end. And then also feel free to just send us an email or, about those questions as well. And then what we will be doing after this progress report is we will be going through each of them as we comb through them every quarter, and then we'll be providing specific feedback. So we'll be doing it in two ways. One, if there's any specific areas that we see that we can highlight, we'll share those with each of you directly. And then we'll also compile some overall suggestions and kind of just thoughts on the progress report as a whole to the cohort too. Yes, this recording will be shared with you all, and then also the examples on the document that Noemi and Brianna shared will be distributed hopefully later today, and we're going to be working to get this on our website as well, so that way you have easy access and don't have to search through your email for it. Carolyn, great question. Would you be able to conduct a technical assistance on evaluations, various types of evaluations in areas that cohort members can and should evaluate? Yes, this is something that we're working on. We've been hearing directly from you all in regards to one, capacity, but also technical assistance around data collection and evaluation. And this is something that we're looking at to be able to provide, especially with some of the more sensitive information on youth demographics, but also on how to complete additional sections on this too. So we will be looking at technical assistance resources shortly. Jorge, thanks. I'm also glad that this is better geared to reflect your work. Okay, there was another question that came in. What should we do with the previous progress report? Do we need to also revise those, include them into this quarter's report, or something else? No, please do not take the extra effort to revise your previous progress reports. This is a change on our end, and we will not add more labor and work to your team. So please only move forward using this progress report, and we will be providing an extension. We understand that this progress report that concluded with the work that occurred through December 31st will be due at the end of this month, at the end of January. And so we will be providing an extension to cohort 1 to be able to take about an extra week to kind of compile this updated progress report. And for those of you who have already started working on your progress reports, I'm happy to say that it'll be easy to shift it over, since most of this is staying the same. And then we've again shared in the email both a highlighted version and then a clean version, so you can see those specific changes clearly, and then you can also use the clean version moving forward. Okay, another question. Love the examples you shared. Are there any real life examples with articles, videos, or web pages that show youth efforts? I'd love to share with our youth to expand their minds on their different possibilities. So this is a great question. We're hoping this will be included in our upcoming networking sessions. You'll have an opportunity to connect with our cohort partners, and then we'll be doing some cross networking as well with cohort 2 that launched in November. And as you all have been doing this work since March, April, it'll provide them an opportunity to connect with you all as you've thought through kind of this process as well. And so we're hoping that the networking will hopefully be a bit more organic, where you'll hear from partners and seeing kind of the work that they're doing and the successes that they've had and the ways that they've also had to shift. And hopefully that'll provide some greater insights and innovative ways of how folks are kind of conducting this work during this time, but also as they're looking to move forward once we hopefully soon move out of the pandemic. Yes, so there will, another question that was asked was, will there be ways for orgs to connect and share their progress, success, and challenges? We can share our best practices and problem solve. Yes, we are going to be launching networking sessions that we're looking at monthly for each of the cohorts, and then also thinking through how that works across cohorts. And those sessions, as we've shared in some of the more individual calls with our partners, we will be having different themes and topics, so that way you can determine who is best geared to attending those sessions, those networking sessions. Of course, they're not mandatory, but we're hoping that we're encouraging you to join so you can connect with partners and learn about the work that they're doing, but also serve as a resource to our partners as well. And so you all have amazing skills and some areas that you're more expert in, and others that you might need a little bit of help. So we're hoping that the networking sessions will allow for just organic ways to connect. And there's no one better to share about the successes and best practices of this work than our EYC partners who are doing it right now. Okay, and again, you're more than welcome to send us an email if you have any additional specific questions. We'll also look out for those questions, and anything that is relevant, we'll share them across the partners as well. So don't hesitate to share questions or ask questions. We know that they can be beneficial to others as well. So we definitely encourage you to feel free to send us an email. If at any point while you're completing this progress report, you have any questions or are looking for clarifications, we're more than happy to assist, and we'll try to get back to you in a timely manner to prioritize the upcoming deadline on we're providing the extension on the this upcoming progress report.
Alvinder,
Yep.
Before you wrap up, just one thing I'm wondering is, as we look at how to assess change among participants and individual youth, can we also be looking at kind of more qualitative approaches? I think the default way we tend to look at things is through surveys. But I'm also wondering, like, if a grantee organization were just to document conversations with young people in which they ask young people, what has been your experience? What do you feel like you're learning? So that it occurs kind of within a relational dynamic and helps young people be able to articulate, how are they developing, right? So, and I'm sure that's something that you're open to and would consider. But I guess sometimes for me, when I'm working in a community environment with young people, that can be more organic or be more kind of a natural way to assess how we're doing than relying entirely on surveys, for example. So.
Great point, Jim. And I actually will share with the funded partners and one resource that I found on how to collect that type of qualitative data, including a small group interviews, audio and written diaries, and photo essays or photo voice. And so we'll share as many resources as we can with the funded partners on that.
Great, thank you, Noemi.
Yeah, Jim, I'm sure all of our partners appreciate that question. And having spoken to a number of them, you know, that was definitely a question that folks had, right? Of what are innovative ways to kind of look at evaluation, especially in the virtual, environment with youth, and then having them kind of complete a survey and not sure if they're going to submit it back or not. But yes, Jim, I appreciate your question, as I'm sure all of the EYC partners do as well. And so yes, as Naomi shared, we are more than happy to receive evaluation that is qualitative. We're encouraging you to think about the ways that it's most impactful for you to collect this information. And while we understand that not everything is kind of rooted in academia and this formal way of evaluation, there's a number of ways to do it in a way that is more impactful as we work with communities and young folks. Okay, so if there's no more questions, again, you're more than welcome to send us an email. Our EYC partners will appreciate any of the questions that are coming through, and we'll provide answers to everyone, as they kind of come through. And then after this call, we will be sharing the recording as soon as Zoom processes it, and then we'll also update it on our website as well. And so we will share an email with you, hopefully either before the end of today, and if not on Monday, with a link to this recording, as well as the example document that was provided. And then we will also share in that email the updated deadline for, or the extension for this quarter's progress report. Thank you all for the amazing work that you all are doing. And we are greatly, greatly appreciative of the feedback that you continue to provide. And, we at the center and, really believe in this true partnership with each of our partners, and are definitely inviting and encouraging you to share your honest and open feedback as we continue this work together. Your insights will reflect ways that we can improve the progress report, as well as many other aspects of this program as well. So thank you all for that honesty and clarity and transparency, and we look forward to being in touch with you all soon.
All righty, thanks everybody.